If you think of something. All right, here we go. As I mentioned earlier, I work for Project Made Easy. We're a Microsoft partner, and we specialize in creating custom applications for any business process. So if you've ever had some sort of process that tools may not sort of fit, like maybe there's a tool for it, but doesn't quite do what you want it to do, that's where we come in. We build a tool like a glove to fit your process. And I bring that up because the scenario I'm going to show you is a real live story that has been written and gone through development, and now we have a finished product. So I'm going to show you one story for a very small feature that was added to our tool, one of our tools, and then the process to get there. So I'm going to cover why are we using AI for story writing? How does that benefit us? And then I'm going to talk about prompting tips. How do I prompt it? What do I input to get the outputs that I need? And then some analysis and editing that will need to happen once you get that output. Now, when I refer to AI, I'm specifically talking about natural language processing. Some examples of that is Copilot. I'm going to use ChatGPT. And if I have a little bit of time, we might explore with Copilot a little bit too, just to see what it does for us. But during this discussion, I'll use ChatGPT. Anytime you use anything AI, be very careful about what you enter. Never enter sensitive information into it. Sometimes it will store your inquiries in its model. So if you don't want that information out there, don't put it in there. I always encourage people to check with your internal security folks, and know what's allowed and what's not in your organization. Understand the rules before you do anything. All right, so before I dive into the benefits, this quote kind of helps me go into that. Like, why are we doing this? Well, I like this because nothing is really work unless you'd rather be doing something else. I feel like sometimes story writing can be a bit tedious. And whether you're a scrum master or a tech lead or a product owner, each of those roles, there's so many things that you're doing for your organization outside of that role or even within that role. So story writing isn't exactly going to be like all you do every day, all day. Sometimes it gets in the way of the things that we rather be doing. So hopefully we save you some time. So that's the purpose, is just to save you some time. When way back in the day when I was in the PMO, one of the things that we did a lot were to write communication. So we had to communicate to the company or communicate to all the PMs, whatever. And sometimes one of us were the lucky chosen to draft up that communication first. And I had a boss, I don't know if they're on this call, but they know about this presentation. And she would always say, I'm a better editor than writer. And I learned that that's true because we do spend a lot more time drafting something than we do editing something. So give me something to edit. I can edit it in 10 minutes. Get it done. But if I have to draft from scratch, well, now I got to think about what I want to say, how I want to say it. So the point of this is to save you some time. All right, so we talked a little bit. I already kind of mentioned what AI I'm referring to. So if you're familiar with ChatGPT or Copilot, it's natural processing or natural language processing. And so you will have a conversation with the tool. You speak to it like you would speak to a human. And so in this relationship with your AI, you're going to say, hey, ChatGPT, I need XYZ. And ChatGPT, within seconds, they're going to say, here you go, lady. Boom. And then you get it. And then you can actually respond to that. And it remembers the conversation as you chat with it. So you can keep refining those responses as you go down. And we'll see kind of how that works here in a bit. It's pretty easy. All you do is input information and then it returns a response. Now, I like to point out that when we're thinking about using I hear this a lot in group conversations. I see this a lot with my teams, just because we're exploring AI for a lot of different reasons. And novices will go into the use of AI thinking that it's the expert, it's going to do my job for me, and I'm free. No hard work, no thinking. Well, that's not true. We want you to be the expert, and you have to see AI as the novice. And so you're accountable for the output, and you can't trust the output. You have to be the expert here. So if you think about this, think of the AI as your personal assistant, or someone that's going to just help you do the administrative side of story writing. I need some stories. I kind of know what I need. Here, go draft this for me. And then when you give it back to me, I, the expert, I'm going to go through and make sure the outcomes are exactly what I thought. So to emphasize my point about not trusting the AI to understand exactly what your teams need, I asked the help of my good buddy, Will Smith. Not Will Smith. We're not buddies. I shouldn't say that with recent event news. But I don't know if you've seen this. There's a movie with Will Smith, and he plays a police officer. And in this futuristic world, AI does his job to save lives, but he's not happy with the outcomes. So let's hear what he has to say about it.
The robot's brain is a difference engine. It's reading vital signs. It must have calculated that.
It did. I was the logical choice. Calculated that I had a 45% chance of survival. Sarah only had an 11% chance. I was somebody's baby. 11% is more than enough. A human being would have known that. Robots, nothing here, just lights and clockwork. Go ahead and you trust them if you want to.
So I share Will's, or his character's, this taste for trusting the AI, right? And I don't want you to fall into that trap of being so disappointed. Not that it would be life-threatening in your situation, but you don't want to hand your team a bad story, right? It's not fun. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. I already talked about the benefits. I talked about security, so be careful what you enter. We hung out a while about your relationship with the AI. You have to be the expert. I always think of it too as like, when I send my kids to school to learn math, I don't expect the teacher is going to give them a calculator. I expect the teacher is going to explain manually like how to do math, right? The calculator just helps speed that process up. So if you're new to story writing and you're not quite sure what a good user story is, I encourage you to do it manually before trying this process out. All right, so let's get over and look at some prompting tips. So the first thing I'm going to show you is something that was actually written for ChatGPT. And I preserved it the way it was written. So you'll notice a couple of misspellings there. Maybe some bad grammar, I don't know. The point is, it took it to write this paragraph, it took all of, under a minute. And this is a good example of how I would explain to a human, hey, I need you to draft me some user stories. So I'll give you a second to read what I wrote. All right, hopefully you got a chance to read through that. We're going to dissect this a little further. So this is the prompt or the input that I provided to ChatGPT for a feature, a small feature that I wanted to create for a product. And the first thing I did, I thought about how I would describe it to, like I said, a human. And so I gave it context around what I'm doing. Like, what are we dealing with here? And then the next thing I went into is just the current state of things. It's such a small summary, but it states like, what problem am I trying to solve? Well, I don't want to go to SharePoint to do these things. I want to do it in the app. And so the last thing I provided was future state, or what are we going to do to solve this problem? Well, we're going to build a page within the application. And so the whole point of this is to have things all in one place. Now I'm going to skip ahead to ahead of the timeline. So right now, this is just me asking ChatGPT to draft me a story, but I'm going to skip ahead to the outcome of that story, and I'm going to show you the product. So just so you can kind of visualize what I'm asking for if you've never seen a Power App or the verbiage isn't quite clear what I'm asking for. So what I'm saying is I have this thing called Idea Hub. So this is a Power App application and it's named Idea Hub. And what I said to it is I would really love to click on a settings button that takes me to a page where I can do these configurations and manage my app. I can manage field settings and I can manage archive settings. I can add users. And these are the three things that I asked for. And this is like the outcome of that before I actually wrote my stories. Now I'm going to rewind back in time. So before we got the output of that, or you can reap the benefits of it, this is where it started. Here is the paragraph I showed you in my slide deck. And it's just plopped in there as is. And if you scroll down, it said, sure, in 2 seconds, it plopped out 5 user stories. And so I thought, okay, all right, I'm going to have to copy this out and go through it, make sure it's, it's fine. But then I thought, oh, but you know what? My organization doesn't use this format. So I thought, well, let's see what ChatGPT can do. And I replied, well, can you write this using Gherkin method? I didn't have to re-explain what I was doing. It remembered the first prompt and it said, absolutely. And so I stopped here. I'm like, okay, we're getting somewhere. And so if you're a novice, you're going to copy this code, plop it in your user story, give it to your team and say, woohoo, job done. But if you're an expert, you will not do that. What you'll do is you're going to copy it and you're going to analyze this. So I'm going to go ahead and hit copy code, and it puts it in this code window because I asked for Gherkin syntax. So it treats it like computer code. And if you're not familiar with Gherkin, that's okay. I have a link I can provide at the end of this to describe that to you. So I'm going to go over, we use Azure DevOps. It's a lot like Jira. If you're familiar with Jira, it's just a team board like Trello or any other tool. And if I create a new item, I'm going to take what was given to me and I'm just going to paste it. The first thing I noticed is like, well, I really like this as a story title. So, and it's not really big enough to be more than one story. And I, the expert, know that because I've worked with my team. So I know that what I'm asking for, they should be able to get within one story. It's pretty small. So I'm going to keep it in one story. And then the second thing I'm going to look at is my persona statement. Okay, as a member of the Idea Hub admin group, I want to access and manage application configurations. Yes, yes, yes. So that I can control, access, update. Well, I do want to do these things. Yes. but it doesn't really tell my team like why I want it. So I think I want to change this. So I'm going to say, I'm going to keep that. And I'm going to keep the second part. But I think I want to say something more like, so I can manage, or maybe even make it a little more simpler. So I can do these things within the application rather than going to SharePoint, so that it's all in one place or something like that. And then now I have my acceptance criteria. So we like to plop that in a different field to make it a little more clear. So I'm going to just do that right now. I have my story written and I just have my acceptance criteria. Well, the first thing I notice now is, well, I'm a bit picky about how this is written. I like it to be super easy to read for my team. And I usually write my given when, then all of these keywords that start each sentence, I want them all capitalized. So now we're going to use ChatGPT to edit. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy what I have. And I could do it in the same chat window, but for this demonstration, I want to open a new window because I don't want to lose what I already have. So I'm going to say, hey, can you please format my text? And I'm saying please because I'm a nice person and it's just ingrained in the way I talk. But you don't have to be this kind to ChatGPT. Although, you know, it just doesn't feel right if you're not. So format my text so that all my words are in caps. Keywords like given, and I'm going to use I don't feel like holding down the shift key, so I'm going to say when, then, oh, yes, I wasn't done. Then, and. All right, and it's going to say the same thing. Well, yeah, but you got to provide your text. And so I'm going to paste it. Actually, I'm going to go back to my board, copy, and paste. And so it says, here you go, lady. And if I want to get a little more pickier, I might say, could we bold those keywords? Because that'd be kind of cool. Great. Just to make my ChatGPT feel good about its job, I'm going to add that word. It's not necessary, but I like to be kind. Can you now bold those keywords? It did it. So now it's formatted. So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to replace my text. So now my formatting's done. My next step is to go through and refine all of the scenarios. So I'm not going to go through that with you today, but I will show you the completed version. So if I save that, and then I go to this guy here, I actually worded this slightly different, but it's saying the same thing. And then if you notice in the acceptance criteria, a lot of these, like, we've added some ands because we had to think through what pieces we need. So the draft was a good trigger for my mind to start to visualize what is it that I need to do. And it broke it out into pieces pretty darn nicely the first time. And so now as I edit it, I start to think of like, oh, but what about this and what about that? So I saved all that initial time getting that first go at it. And now I'm skipping ahead to just like refining that and adding the pieces that I think we need. And this is before it gets to my team. And then down further, this scenario here, ChatGPT gave me a given when then. And then it turned out to be and I actually had some additional ways to break that down for my team. And so you see how that starts to grow. And so there has to be analysis and refinement after that before you hand it to your team. So I feel like for this small story, it probably would have taken me normally about 40 minutes, maybe an hour to draft up the initial like given when then and scenarios, because they have to type all that out. And then I have to go through and bold everything. Then and if I don't type it with caps, then I have to fix that because, that's just how picky me and my team are about having it easy to read. It actually helps them understand it better and we can get through stories faster. So those are things that I care about. You may not care about. You may not even use this format. Maybe there's a different way that you do it. You can start to see how you can explore ChatGPT to do things. If this story had been smaller, then perhaps it doesn't make sense to use your ChatGPT. Perhaps you could just write it. If this had been a huge feature, oh boy, I do want to use ChatGPT because then I could start to get all those features out there and then go through that refinement and editing. It'll save me tons of time. So I hope that makes sense. One more example, we can actually, do we have enough? I'm going to pop over to a Copilot example. And I'm going to try this out. If you have Copilot turned on in your organization, Microsoft has sort of just auto turned it on for you. And so if your Office 365 administrator allowed that to happen, then you'll start to see Copilot pop up in Office, like in places in Office 365. And so within Azure, that's already happening for us. And so here, I took the same prompt. And you guys are going to go through this with me for the first time today. I haven't actually tried this. And then the only thing I added was this: write a user story in Gherkin. Here's the following. Boop. So let's see what Copilot comes up with. When I highlight it, you can't see it because it pops over on my other screen, but I have this option to rewrite with Copilot. And when I click it, it'll start to generate and it's rewriting. There it is. So this is way better for me than ChatGPT already because it's in the tool that I use. So I'm just going to hit replace. Now it didn't do the formatting, so maybe I have to go back. And it actually wrote the story a little differently. So here the title is a little shorter, but I can always add to it. I would like to say for Idea Hub, because that's the name of our tool. And then if I read this first statement, as an admin of Idea Hub application, I want a dedicated settings page within the Power Apps. I like the way it said that, so I can manage the application without needing to go to SharePoint. That was what I was thinking. If I had used Copilot, I would not have to have rewritten that statement. So it's interesting that Copilot got this better than ChatGPT. That's kind of cool. I didn't think that was going to happen. And then it looks like there's a lot of work here. So I don't know, maybe there's a trade-off. I think ChatGPT did a better job on the scenarios from the looks of it. But you can explore that in your organization. All right, so we talked about the prompts. Remember, when you're going into story writing, add some context, give it current state, future state. Don't give any sensitive information. And then review and read the information. Explore the formatting options. It bolded, it indented, it formatted using a specific syntax that's, on the internet. So I'm assuming ChatGPT is a very good Googler. It does it within seconds. here are some helpful links I can share if you need help knowing like what good user stories. These are good places to start. This is where I started. There's a lot more information out there, but yeah, if you need this, let me know. All right. Any questions?
You do, Jennifer, in the chat.
Oh,
Marilyn
okay.
asks you.
All right.
I don't know if you can see, I can read it to you, but
Yeah.
if you can't see it.
Oh no, I can pull up right here. Let me see here. All right, so pickles. Scrolling
Marilyn
through.
was thinking the exact same thing I was. Yeah.
Sorry. So basically I was asking like,
Yep.
could you prompt for the story to be split?
Yep.
Oh,
That's
that's a good question.
exactly what I was
So
thinking. Yep.
I actually explored that, and this is a funny little exercise because so prompting does matter. Here, let me get out of this here. I'm just clicking everywhere. And this is why I didn't want to like go any further. So I'm going back to the first example where, let's see. So here is, I said, hey, here's my story. And then it wrote it. And then I said, I don't like that. I like gherkin. And it said, okay, here you go. Boom. And so then I said, can you split the acceptance criteria using spider method?
Mhm.
And so what it did, I think it gave me something that I didn't understand. Like, I think this is the correct one, but I had to ask it 3 times because this was wrong. And I think I'm missing, this is like months ago when this happened, so I apologize, but it returned something that wasn't correct. I think I finally got to the correct answer when I said, can you split it into smaller stories using paths based on spider method? So I had to be super specific because if you ask this question, it's going to give you something dumb. Or at least it's not dumb, it's just dumb for what you're trying to do. And I had to know that. Like, if I'm new and I'm like, yeah, split it during the spider method. Hey, I'm an expert story splitter. Well, what it did wasn't correct because I referenced it wrong. And so I had to reference it correctly. And because my story was it was such a small function to add that it was already split. And so it kind of did it, but I wasn't really feeling how it split it because now I'm back to 5 stories and I'm like, this is pretty small. We don't need 5 stories. So you can do that, but you really have to be careful about the output.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I was just curious if it, I know this one's a small one, but if you had said, split by scenario or something. So it'll be just interesting to see what it would do. So
I'd like to explore that further with larger stories and just like more functionality.
Yeah.
So yeah, good stuff. Where did you see the icon for? So for some reason, when I use Chrome, I don't see it. It might be on purpose for Microsoft, but where I guess I could show you in the, oh, not that one. Probably within the Power App, because for some reason, when I select this, it pops over into my other screens. Can I drag it? No. I'll show you the Power App. That might be more helpful. So I'm gonna copy this, and I'm gonna use an Edge browser. Yeah. All right. So this will happen in Microsoft tools. So in Office 365, we have Power Apps. So like if you go to your Office 365 and you look at your apps, Power Apps is what I'm looking at. So this is one item. I've also seen it in, I don't know if I've seen it in Excel, but it's definitely in Word. And so anytime you go into a text field, like a multi-line text field, it's approved. Let me do this new one. And I start to type, see how it says draft with Copilot? So the draft with Copilot is, I'm gonna say something with really bad grammar and it's gonna be run-on sentences and I'm just gonna type it all out. And then draft with Copilot will clean it up for you, make it proper with good sentences, which is kind of nice because, you know, if you rely on spell check, that's the next thing, right? But let's see if I can get my original prompt there. I just want to get some words. But if I have text and then I select it, that's not going to do it here. Oh, it's doing it, but it's in my other screen. I don't know how to show you this. There's a little pop-up that says rewrite with Copilot. See if I could do it in Word. So I'm finding that Copilot is a little more trickier to get to work smoothly. See if it'll do it. And that's not doing it in Word either. You can check with your Office 365 administrator, and then see if that ability is turned on in your environment. I just notice it like pop up in certain places. So in our Power Apps, it pops up, and then in Azure DevOps, it pops up. It'll say draft with Copilot if you're starting to type, but if you highlight text, it'll say rewrite with Copilot. And when you rewrite with Copilot, you have to make sure that the prompt is a little more specific. So like the verbiage that I pasted into ChatGPT works because there's a question here. And so it picks up on this question in the middle. But with Copilot, I had to say in the beginning, write user stories, and then I put the whole like 3 paragraphs into double quotes, and then it picked up what I wanted it to do.
You know, it's interesting. We're getting great feedback in the chat. Dan had mentioned it looks to be an Edge only feature, which may be why you're not seeing it in some of the other browsers. And then Bryant had mentioned the differences between chat and Copilot. And he's seeing that chat is a broader tool that handles conversation tasks and is versatile across different domains, whereas Copilot is specifically designed for coding purposes and provides context-aware assistance. So they have different personalities, so that may lend towards, that's cool. So
Yeah,
that's awesome.
that makes sense of why I'm seeing the differences too.
Yeah.
And you know, now that I hear that response, I'm like, well, maybe I'll stop being so mean to Copilot because it never gives me what I want. And ChatGPT does. The risk though is you got to be careful what you're telling it, because it will keep it, and it may not be as safe. So
yeah. Just
have you used AI for writing stories for non-functional requirements? If so, any tips? I have not personally. My team is getting more comfortable writing stories, and so I'm encouraging them to do it, and they haven't done it yet. So I don't have an answer for that, but I feel like you could. right? And the benefit I think to that is one of my team's hesitation is they don't have the time to write stories properly. And they don't have the time to write it in Gherkin format and do it right. So I feel like it could help them get it drafted. But again, I would have to say, be the expert and read it and edit it and make sure it's communicating what you're asking for. So although I haven't written non-functional requirements, I do feel pretty optimistic that it would work for that. I just say try it.
That's a good question.
All right, I don't see, did I miss any questions here? I'm not sure. It doesn't look like I missed any questions. I hope I didn't.
I don't think so. Does anybody else have any questions, comments?